Hello, Reddit community. I'm not sure if this is the right place to post a story like this, so please excuse my formatting and the length of this post, as I'm pretty new to Reddit. A few years ago, probably now 10 years, my mother and my stepfather bought a house in southern Europe. It was a bargain back then as prices weren't skyrocketing like they are nowadays. The house was built sometime in the 1950s. It originally belonged to our current neighbor. Her parents built it after the war. They later built a new house right next to it and are still living there. She and her husband are now both over 70 and very kind people. Neither my mom nor my stepfather knew anything about the house's history when they bought it. I guess they just didn't want to start a new chapter in their lives. It was a tough time back then, because we were basically living in a construction site while they renovated a lot of things themselves. We found a few relics in the house, an old sewing machine and some old war postcards that were hidden beneath the basement floor, but nothing too unusual at first. The property is two buildings, the main house with a basement and a smaller second building. We later found out that the second building used to be a goat stable. During renovations, they needed to remove the floor there, so they had to dig into the ground. We were pretty new in town at the time, and if you ever lived in a very small community, you knew how interested people are in newcomers. I'm sure we were the main topic of conversation back then, especially after what we found. While digging, we uncovered several animal remains. If I remember correctly, the first thing we found was a goat pelvic bone, or maybe just part of a spine. It'd been so many years that I don't remember exactly. But then we found something much more disturbing, the top part of a human skull. It was very clear that it was real. You could see the cranial sutures, the seams where a human skull fuses together as it grows. My mom and stepfather didn't know what to do at first. We had just found what is clearly a human bone buried in the stable. I pushed my mom to call the police, and she did. Several police cars arrived, along with a local town doctor, who came to examine the bone. You can imagine how many neighbors showed up to see what was going on. The doctor and the police confirmed that it was indeed part of a real human skull. They asked if they'd found anything besides this and the goat bones, but we hadn't. Strangely, they brushed it off as something his previous tenant might have left there. As quickly as they arrived, they left. They didn't even take the bone with them. They told us it was up to us what to do with it. A few days later, we talked more with the neighbors who had previously owned the house. At first, they were very happy that we brought it, since we seemed like a normal family, finally bringing some life back into the place. But my mom wanted to know more about the house's history, so they told us what they knew. Some years before we moved in, they had rented the place out before eventually selling it. The first tenants were, according to them, a very troubled family. They had a daughter who was well known in town. I don't know how much of this is actually true, but the neighbors claim they were running some kind of brothel involving their daughter. I have no idea how long this supposedly went on, or how many guests there were. Her room was still in its original condition when we moved in. There were satanic symbols painted on the walls, and strange writings. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of the skull, bones, or the writing. The family had a very bad reputation in town, and people were relieved when they moved away. After them, a psychologist moved in. She lived there alone. Our neighbor told us she displayed animal skeletons around the property, and even left them hanging on the outer walls to dry. They described her as a very strange or eccentric. As you can imagine, she also had a bad reputation in town. I had never seen or heard someone openly drying animal skeletons where everyone could see them. As all of this unfolded, I couldn't help but look up at the psychologist online. As far as I could find, she is still practicing today. To this day, we never found out why that human skull fragment was buried in the stable, or how it got there in the first place. My mom once suggested that maybe the psychologist had ordered it from a university for study purposes, but we'll probably never know. This happened about 10 years ago. I was 11 at the time, Every now and then, I still think about it because it's just so strange. I still don't know where someone could even order something like that, or why would you bury it in such a random place? I just wanted to share this story here. Maybe someone has an idea why someone would bury something like this, and where a person could even obtain a human skull fragment. I guess it's just my curiosity. Edit. Also, maybe it's a good idea to mention the skull fragment was cleanly cut, like it was made with some sort of bone cutter. I think everyone has seen a movie where the top part is missing and the brain is visible. Kind of cut like such a scene. I found a complete real skull for ordering in Switzerland. The top part is also cut like this one. The only difference are the screws that hold the skull together, which were missing on the thing we found. Alright, so this story happened to me a couple of years ago when I was around 14 years old. At the time, I wanted to make a little bit of money for myself. I figured the easy way to do that was by some old toys on Facebook Marketplace. I had a pretty big Lego Harry Potter collection, but I really wasn't into Harry Potter anymore, so I decided to sell it. A few days after posting the ad, a buyer contacted me. I remember feeling really excited because I was about to make my first real money on my own. The buyer was a man who looked kind of old, but from his profile picture he seemed nice though. He told me he wanted to buy the Legos for his grandson, which honestly made the whole thing seem pretty wholesome. But as we started messaging, a few things felt off. Whenever I asked him questions about when he could pick up the Legos, he would leave me unseen and not reply. Sometimes he wouldn't answer until I sent multiple question marks. On top of that, he made a lot of grammatical mistakes, like the kind of mistakes a high schooler might make, not a fully grown adult. At the time, I thought it was weird, but I ignored it. Eventually, we agreed to meet. I don't remember exactly if it was Wednesday or Thursday, but I remember I had school the next day. He said he wanted to pick them up at night. I gave him the address of a bookstore, about a 10-minute walk from my house. That way I wouldn't have to give him my actual home address. He told me he wanted to meet at 8:30 p.m. Looking back now, that's obviously really late for a 14-year-old to meet a stranger. But at the time, I just wanted the money, so I agreed. Still, something in my gut told me not to go alone. My dad was away on a business trip at the time, so I asked my mom if she could come with me. She immediately asked if I could reschedule the meeting with the man. I told her it would be fine and that the man seemed nice. Eventually, she agreed to come with me. We drove to the bookstore, but my mom didn't want the man to see our car, so she parked about 5 minutes away, and we walked the rest of the way. I had the Lego pieces in my jacket pocket because I didn't want to carry them in my hands. As we were walking towards the bookstore, something immediately caught my attention. Standing in front of the store was a man. He looked middle-aged, maybe older, but right away I noticed something strange. He did not look like the man in the Facebook profile picture at all. The man in the profile picture had long gray hair, but this guy was skinny, had a buzz cut, and was wearing a sling bag across his chest. Before he crossed the street, my mom stopped me. She told me to text the man and say that I was already inside the bookstore. She had a bad feeling and didn't want me going near him. So I did exactly that. As we passed the man, I hid my phone so he wouldn't see that I was texting. I sent him a message saying I was already inside the store and asked if he could come in. Almost immediately he replied. He told me to come outside and he kept insisting. At this point it was really dark outside and barely anyone was around. The only reason I could even see him clearly was because of a street light nearby. I messaged him again and told him that I wasn't going outside, even though I was actually walking away toward the car. I wanted him to think I was still inside the bookstore. Then he sent another message. He simply called me an idiot and added a laughing emoji. The message honestly freaked me out. It felt like he knew something was off. As soon as my mom and I got back to the car, we drove away. And on the way home, she told me to delete my Marketplace account and block the man immediately. When we got home, I thanked my mom for coming with me. She hugged me and told me that I should never meet someone that late again. But the story doesn't end there. Around that same time, one of my friends was also selling Lego figures on Marketplace. He was a little older than me, maybe 16. I told him about the whole situation, but I never told him the name of the man. Halfway through my story, my friend suddenly said a name and asked, "Wait, was it this guy?" I was completely shocked. I asked him how he knew. Then he showed me screenshots of a conversation he had with a buyer. It was the same man, and he was telling my friend the exact same story, that he wanted to buy Lego figures for his grandson. My friend immediately messaged him and said someone had already bought the figures. That wasn't true. He just didn't want to deal with the guy anymore. After that, neither of us have ever heard from that man again. I don't know what he's doing now, but my gut feeling tells me that whoever that man really was, he definitely wasn't trying to buy Legos for his grandson. This happened 20-some years ago, but it's still really vivid in my mind. I, 40-year-old female, was working alone in a sort of seedy area in my hometown at a 24-hour adult video toy store. I more often than not ended up working the overnight shift, which wasn't usually too bad. Occasionally we got drunk guys from the bar next door, but mostly the customers were pretty respectful. A guy came in on after midnight. I was never sure of his age. He seemed like the sort of guy who was 50, but also possibly 25 or somewhere in between. He had the same haircut as Johnny Depp in that god-awful Wonka movie, and he talked in this weird falsetto Michael Jackson voice. It made my skin fucking crawl. He asked me to call him a cab, and I did. I nervously told him he could wait in front of the store for it, and probably made up something about paying customers only inside the store, but he ignored me, slowly making his way further into the store and making conversation. I just kept thinking this guy was definitely on something, and he was definitely going to skin me and wear me like a people suit. He was standing right next to the phone on the counter, sort of leaning against it. I kept telling him his taxi would be there any minute, and he ignored me, still asking me questions. I just remember him asking, "Do you have any pussycats?" No. I was led to believe that I'd find pussycats in here. If I had a dildo to brandish as a weapon within reach or some spray lube to use as a makeshift pepper spray at this point, I would have used it. Thankfully, this beautiful angel of a man who decided to rent porn after midnight came in. I immediately greeted him and said, "Oh, I need to talk to you about your special order." When he came over to the counter to ask what I meant, I just whispered, "Please stay," and sort of jerked my head towards the creepy guy who was just smiling at us. My guardian porn renter went along with the ruse and thanked the baby Jesus. The creep went out to get his taxi. The customer asked if I was okay, and I said I was. So he went to browse. I gave him a free rental as a thank you. I swear to God, I can still hear his voice when I think about this. So, possible serial killer Willy Wonka, let's not meet again. Hey everyone, I hope you all enjoyed those stories. With that said, have a great night, and as always, stay depraved.